Hello, I'm William Cook, and this is going to be my final presentation for the Vietnam and Korean War class, Professor Robert Ritchie. For the class, we're going to talk about comparing of two strategies that took place during the Vietnam War. The presidents I'm going to focus on are John F. Kennedy and Lyndon B. Johnson. And we're going to start with JFK. He served as president from 1961 to 1963. Let me get his face up there for us. He was president from 1961 to 1963. And the big thing about JFK to keep in mind, the main theory around Vietnam is that we were trying to stop the push of communism. Now, JFK thoroughly believed in the domino effect. Domino effect theory, meaning when one nation fall to communism, inevitably the surrounding states and nations will also fall to communism. And that was a big threat at the time. So that was JFK's big stance and why he had such an interest in Vietnam. Contrary to perception today, JFK actually increased military in support of South Vietnam. This is another thing that our professor Robert Ritchie talked about how we have a Western view and we kind of divide them into lines, North and South Vietnam, but it wasn't really like that, and we'll find out more about that in a moment. He increased the support in South Vietnam. He had a promise to help suppress the insurgency being communism. We refer to them as Viet Cong commonly, or Charlie. And he also warned the Russians about aiding in guerrilla warfare. Russia being a big enemy of the United States in the Cold War, pushing communism, and that inevitable spread was believed to reach Vietnam, and the Russians threatening to help aid. And that was something that JFK wanted to go against. So, to suppress the insurgency, the fight against communism, and he wanted to support South Vietnam. What he did was he increased military support, had field generals to have what he called a full-fledged field command. He put a 4-star general in the field. That was part of his strategies. He actually increased his military advisory back home to help him on the situation. This was big focus in his short term as president. Charles de Gaulle, a French leader, actually told him he advised against Vietnam in his support. He referred to it as a bottomless military and political swamp. So the final strategy I'm going to talk about with JFK is called Strategic Hamlet. Now, Strategic Hamlet was a colossal failure in regards to JFK's strategy. What Strategic Hamlet is, I got a nifty picture up here. As you can see, it's not very becoming. What they would do is JFK, essentially Strategic Hamlet would be to remove the locals forcefully in some cases, and the idea was to protect the South Vietnamese and put them into these barriers in order to protect them. However, this backfired as the South Vietnamese and a lot of the peasants and the farmers did not like this, and they started to support the Viet Cong. And so they went to the communism. It was a big propaganda tool, per se, in South Vietnam. There was protests. There's probably familiar with the story of the Asian monk that lit himself on fire in protest of these strategies, and it was all directed at JFK. Strategic Hamlet failed. So that's a big thing to consider with JFK. There's also theories out there that we believe that JFK in his presidency knew a lot about a conspiracy to assassinate the South Vietnamese president. Well, he was assassinated, and 3 weeks later, JFK was assassinated. So that brings me to our next president that I'll be talking about. One thing about JFK that I quickly want to mention. This is a South Vietnamese soldier, an American soldier, and a North Vietnamese soldier. What this signifies was JFK's support in training the South Vietnamese. That's another part of his strategy. He implemented soldiers and troops into the field to actually train the South Vietnamese. I think this picture grasped that fairly well, the kind of nature of it. So, we're on to Lyndon B. Johnson now. Now, he took over for JFK, and in his first year, he made a promise to continue JFK's his strategies, his command that he put into place. He wanted to expand on that, and he for a while there he did. So, infiltration, the increased infiltration, that was a big part of Lyndon B. Johnson's first year. The covert operations, he moved that from the CIA, which is normally a CIA directive. He moved that from the CIA to the military. So he's actually increasing military, which is kind of against what he says. He's quoted as saying, "We don't want to send American boys to do what the Asian boys can do." A little less PC than we are now today. But he said, we don't want to get wrapped up in another Asian war. We don't want to send American boys to do what Asian boys can do. Well, then he actually goes ahead and puts more American boys into combat. So it's kind of very contradictory to what Lyndon B. Johnson stated early. Now, a big change of pace is going to be the Gulf of Tonkin resolution. I got a picture right here. A military strategist talking about it. Essentially, a naval warship was attacked. I don't know why it went away there. Inevitable. The Gulf of Tonkin, so a ship was attacked, and that led to a thing called the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, where Lyndon B. Johnson requested that he do anything and everything in order to protect his troops, and he got congressional support. With that, he used that as a functional equivalent to declaring war. He didn't actually declare war. This is a big controversy with him because his biggest criticizers will say that he should have gone to Congress for support to declare war, but which he did not. He took it as a functional equivalent to it. So, Rolling Thunder, I'm going to move the, because that's no longer working. Rolling Thunder, that's a big part of the military strategy of Lyndon B. Johnson. What Rolling Thunder was, it was sustained bombings on North Vietnam, which was currently not being active. He deployed 2 Marine battalions to protect the airfield with a command of do not shoot unless shot at. This is the first time, during the Rolling Thunder, it was the first time that military troops had actually been on mainland Asia since Korea. And it was a change of pace. So Rolling Thunder, it was sustained bombings throughout North Vietnam. Towards the end of Rolling Thunder, what happened was they put 2 more Marine battalions in there. And it suddenly starts turning into, this is another strategy where he's a little bit different than JFK. It turned into a search and destroy mission. All in all, Johnson seemed to be going back and forth on his military strategy, and that eventually led to him not wanting to go on to a second presidential term. So, comparing and contrasting, JFK had essentially support for the Vietnamese, the South Vietnamese. That was his big strategy. I think that's a big takeaway. But don't forget about strategic Hamlet there, which kind of pushed them away. Lyndon B. Johnson was more aggressive, search and destroy, Rolling Thunder. So those are the 2 big caveats. They started out kind of similar with support for South Vietnam, and then it became a little bit more violent. So those are the 2 big takeaways on the difference from search and destroy versus support and resistance of the Viet Cong. I'm Bill Cook. Thank you.